more people can come. So some of you know me, but for those who don't, I'm Marko Miladinovic. And I'm painting mostly fantasy miniatures for a few years now, and I will close the door. Okay, I think it's better. And on this workshop, because we have only an hour and a half, I thought to dedicate one part of it to the mindset before. So it's like before you start painting, a lot of people have some picture that they should follow strict lines, strict guidance all the time. And they always are drawn to that. But I think it's not good way, because in that way you lose your uniqueness, your style. So for example, if I don't know, if one kind of jeans is popular, but you don't feel comfortable in that jeans, but you still wear it because it's modern, it's good, it's nice, but you spend years wearing the, for you, ugly and uncomfortable jeans. It's the same with your painting style. So you have to be a bit bold and to be like a bit hot-headed as well. So a lot of people will give you guidance, and that's good. You need to listen, you need to learn, you need to get better all the time. But then you always have to have your own stuff to do. Even if somebody said, "Oh, it's too colorful," you need only to have 2 colors or 3 colors, stuff like that. But and it's not you. If you don't feel comfortable doing and painting like that, then it's basically spending days, hours, years doing what other people think it's good, but you are never really satisfied. And I can tell you from the start, it's not easy to get recognition when you do what you like. So a lot of people will tell you, no, it's not technically right. It's ugly or stuff like that. I get through that, but for me, I think the best part is when you get your own style. When you just do what you like, continue doing it, and expand on doing that. I don't know, you're mostly fantasy, historical painters? Feel free to speak, don't be shy. Historical?
Fantasy.
Fantasy? Historical. So mostly historical people. Hope you will enjoy what I will do, because I plan to do some a bit colorful scheme. So I hope you will like it. So let's see. I don't see if it's good on the screen. Here. So just to make sure that you see the palette as well. Se vidi, ti mi reci? Okay. So you can see, I don't know if the colors are good on the monitor, but you can see here, I based this miniature with very warm shadows. So basically from beneath is actually red. Maybe it's best if you see it in person. And then did the bluish highlights from above. So on this piece, I will concentrate that the shadows will be warm and the highlights will be a bit colder. And in that way, you will get the good contrast, not just with the light and dark, but also with warm and cold. And it is very fundamental in miniature painting to have strong contrast, because if you don't have it on the small piece, it's usually overdone, but that's normal because it's small. You need to do that. You know, in real life it will probably be too much. So you're not trying to do it completely natural. It's overdone, but it's needed to make some stuff pop out. Also, you need to focus on focal points. So, for example, on this piece, I can see that his focal point is his face and maybe a weapon and his arm here. So I'll have this like a triangle in this place. So probably the main focus will be here, but then it will also follow his, I don't know, arrow or something. It's for the ballista. I think it's too big to be crossbow, so it's more like a ballista. So you also have to have that in mind. Let's try adding colors. So what would you like to see? The skin, the non-metallics? Or non-metallics? Okay, we can do that.
It's the most fun.
And it's not that hard actually. You don't have to be too much, especially in some like very rough areas, like on his battled shields. The lights hits in different direction because it's already beaten up. So you don't have to be that specific only to add light on this part on that, because the metal, like this lamp, for example, it's all cranked, so there is a lot of little pieces of light that hits on that metal area. But let's add the colors. Okay, what I have here. Also, as for the colors, I use only acrylics. I never try using oils on the models so far. Maybe one day I will try, but so far, for me it's easier acrylics because it's dry faster, and I can just go and repaint if I don't like something. But usually I don't repaint stuff. I move to the next one. That's also a good thing. You should never be stuck too much to one piece. You start painting and you're not satisfied. You don't try too much to overcorrect it. You move to the next one. So you take the knowledge that you had on that previous one and you move the stuff on the next. If you stick too much on one piece, on one model, one bust, and try to fix it, you will lose your motivation to work. So it's normal that sometimes some models don't look as you want them to look, but then move on, try to fix it on the next one. Don't get stuck on one.
Can I have a quick question?
Sure.
The beginning of this, you said that you combined the red from the
yes.
Bottom and blue from the top. Did you airbrush it or
yes.
it's painted?
Yeah, I first did like a bit of black primer from below, and then the white.
Okay.
And then I mix like a brownish red color with airbrush and just go on the dark areas.
Okay.
And then from above I did blue and then a bit of white.
Okay.
So it gets that. And
Can I add something? Okay, it's mostly because of the time. For the airbrush, it doesn't matter. You can put it with the brush because later you will work.
I don't use airbrush only for
he started using airbrush a few months ago.
And I find it very useful for stuff like this because you can get stuff very faster, but still it doesn't lose your style. For example, a lot of people told me maybe you will lose your style if you use airbrush. No, it's actually just a tool, like any other tool. You use it for stuff you like, and it can help.
You can use it to attributes.
Yeah, you can use as I mentioned before. You pick what you like the most from all the stuff. So, for example, if I decide to use oils, maybe I will use oil for the skin because that works best for me, and then use for other materials the acrylics. It's your stuff. It's what you do. It's your art, your hobby. So you don't have to feel obliged that you have to follow specific rules in this. That's why it's fun. That's why I started painting, because I can do whatever I like.
Can we take the figure to see first and to see what we put?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I will take.
You can speak as well. She works with me, so you can ask her a question as well.
No, it's okay. I'm the little helper. Or is it good for people to see how strong the colors are when you first put them, because they're kind of underpainting?
Yeah.
They will reflect
Also,
in other layers.
big attribute of acrylic is that it gets transparent when you paint in layers. So, for example, now I have that purple somewhere, mix of blue and red makes purple. So some areas are purple, but if I start adding a bit of orange over that, like a rust, it will be very rich brown color. So, and it will look natural. It won't be, for example, if I could finish this model here, you will see that most of the colors will, like on the first sight, disappear, but then if you look closer, you will see there is still some of red and blue in it.
So when you finish, people will find your works.
Yeah, for those we post almost daily and try to answer all the questions online as well. So you can find us on Craftfold Studio page. We have both Facebook and Instagram. So we post for not just to show our stuff, but to motivate people. For me, the best thing is when the people tell me, I used to paint 10 years ago and I follow your stuff and I started again. So it's important that we try to share as much as possible so people will get back to it or start again. Or like for the young people who do only the fast stuff, they don't want to dedicate on this slow hobby. So it's important, if we don't want the hobby to die out, to get new blood as well. Okay, so when you finish with feel free to ask any question. Use this hour to, if you want something to know, let me. So let's focus on. Tirați acolo, ok. So, you can take this one. So I will start working on this shield because I think it's easier for you all to follow. Yeah. So let's first add some colors in it. I will mix ultramarine and brown just to get like it's almost black color, just to make the strongest shadows here. And they will hit like this, and you'll see that I'm not it's a bit of watery color, so I don't know if you can see the consistency of the paint on my finger. So I just want to Alexandra, you can talk.
Okay, so
You can see what's
yes.
Also I will add, while it's drying, I will just add this shadow as well here. So this shield will pop out more if I shadow the beneath part.
So you started with shading first.
But still it's not very consistent because I still want the red to be visible, to when it's dry it still get that like a warm inside shadow.
Yeah.
Sorry if I move. So you can see like this.
So because you have that surface already made, you start with shading in
Yeah.
layers.
And while it's metallic dry, I can also start thinking what should the colors, his skin tone be. So let's say if we do the cold armor part like metals, maybe a bit something warmer. So
We have to the complementary
yeah.
contrast.
So let's do something like this, very bright color of yellow. So just go here. So I'm not very neat at this stage. You can see it's. You don't have to be. And then if I, for example, now lose some of the warmness in the shadows, I can add a bit of, for example, orange as well and brown to get that back. Like this.
So you're using your time for color to dry,
Dry
but also
to-
to see the combination of colors if
Yes.
they work well. So
To
you're
get-
kind of testing them.
Yeah. Also, I would like to have some greenish in the middle. Just to be more. Su ovo boje? Crveno mi fali.
Nije bilo to.
I think now, so I can also use now the mixture that I used for his belly, that orange color. It could be also the color that will bind together his armor and his skin. So I will add also the skin tones to metallic parts, but not too much to lose the contrast. Not to lose the contrast. So it's basically like a wash.
So you're using that few colors for the skin and for the metallics,
Yeah.
you're getting different results.
Yeah, and the underpainting helps me a lot to still be to have the contrast between the
blue and
colors. Yeah. So you will see when it gets dry, the orange that is on the purple part will be more brownish. So now while it's dry, I will continue adding the shadows. Glasnije, sorry. Se vidi dobro?
It is visible on the video, but later when it's dry, you can give a figure for another
Yes,
turn just to see the colors better.
So you see I'm using the similar tones both on his skin and also on metallic parts. Because
Metallics are reflective.
reflective, so it reflected the stuff around him. Also, for example, I don't know if you can see here, if I hold my hand like this and the light is hitting the floor, my hand will have the blue highlights from beneath, even if it's not like a
Light.
blue lamp from below. It's how the light works.
So you're using your finger to check the consistency of paint.
Yeah, that's why.
Also to see if the layers are good.
To see if, like for example, I start painting and it's too watery, I don't want to ruin the model, so I first try on my finger to see if the consistency of paint and color is good enough.
Also, the interesting thing is when you put that green over blue, it is, the green gets more of that vibrancy, that kind of colder tone, but when you put it over red, because it's complementary color, it gets desaturated. Is that the plan?
Yeah. And you can also see I'm adding a bit of highlights now. While it's everything wet, so when it gets dry, all will be blend together. But of course, for to start working on the more highlights, it's to wait to everything to dry out. So I will try to see what's dry enough just to.
Yeah, because your layers are thin, so you add a lot of water, they dry slowly.
Do you use smaller brush for the highlights then later?
Yes, this is the brush too, but later I can switch to the smaller one. But for example, on the model like this, it works fine. Like 2 or 1, it's fine. So you can know if you want to see in person while it's drying. And so you see there is a lot of wet on wet blendings. I believe it's much different than the screen.
I'm not sure if I see that those are scale 75, right? The paints.
Yes, but I also use Warfront, but it's also scale 75. Okay. I like them because they are in between of fantasy and normal historical range, because they're not that they're very matte, but still not too chalky like normal. They don't leave a lot of stains if you wash with them. So they are something in between. Also, I use the new ones. Those are the
Scale 75
smooth acrylic. They're very good because you don't have to shake them. Okay. You can just open and use them from the tube. The only problem so far I found with those is to open them, because when they get dry, sometimes it can be hard to open them. But so far they are good. Also, we are testing now, and so far I like them. The colors from Nocturna. It's a new, but it's not yet on sale. But it's very nice, very strong, very highly saturated colors, but not similar to those. Also, the paints that we started with and mostly are using are the War colors. They're the Greek company, and they're not that famous, but I like them because they are very, like, structure of the paint is very like a yogurt, so you can do a lot of wet blending and then wet on wet and stuff like this. The down part is that they are not that matte as scale. are not that opaque, so you cannot actually do the basing with watercolors. There is some, I think it's called like one coat that they are selling, but I also don't like the finish of those. As for the paints, for the brushes, I use Broken Toad and mostly now the Artis Opus brushes. Also I use Winsor & Newton, but lately I use those because they're pretty similar in some stuff, but different in other. But also you need to have like a longer experience with it to get adjusted. Because, for example, when I first tried the longer bristle brushes, it was hard to control. Because I started with very short ones, very small and short ones. So I was very precise with them. But then when I moved with the big one, it was completely different. But if you give it enough time, you will get adjusted. So you can see it's still in work in progress, of course, but
Kind of sketchy.
yeah, but
Refining.
when I start painting, people told me you need to base coat it in the darkest color and then build lighter and lighter and lighter. But with this kind of technique, you can just paint like if we compare it to the normal canvas, it's like alla prima, when you just try to do it all in one go. So it's when you paint with oils, you don't do it in few layers, but try to do as much as possible with less layers. And it's more fun, I think, and it's faster this way, for me. But it's everything is...
It's like at the first stage you already see the results and then you just refine them and make them more solid.
So it's not like if you made a mistake or you don't like that highlight there, it's much easier to fix it right away, not to do everything and then you see, oh, this is maybe too dark or too desaturated.
Too small or
yeah.
something.
Okay, so at this stage of the figurine, there are like obvious layers that you apply.
Yeah.
I guess that is good at this point of time, right?
Yes, yes.
It will be covered in next steps.
Yes.
It can happen that you also change something in next steps because...
And it's easier for you as well if it's already like at this stage and for example I don't like the green or stuff like that, I can easily repaint it. I don't have to say, oh, I spent hours on this and I'm not satisfied. I will leave it like this.
Because you spent 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Cover it.
So now it's completely dry. I can start adding more highlights, I think. Also, I think I will add some rust. So I'll just take a bit of orange and brown. Because everybody likes weathering, right?
Of course.
Best part. But you can see I'm not leaving the rust for the last thing to do, but something in the middle because then I can, if I think it's too much, I can easily repair it. But if you leave weathering for the last thing sometimes, and then you can need to go back, it's kind of too much work. So you can see I put the paint here and then with just a bit of water I can move it all around. and leave on some parts that I like. Also, good tip, for example, this is too much, I just move it everything. Or if I don't want it at all, I just clean it with water.
So as you're going further, it looks like you covered that first tone that you have, but that color wouldn't look like that if you hadn't had that blue underneath. If it was white, the color would be stronger. If it was black, the color would be dark and
Less
desaturated. So with blue, it gets that kind of cold atmosphere already.